Hello, everyone. I am reading Runaway Ralph, Chapter 8. It is called Ralph Strikes a Bargain. Lana was the one who discovered that Ralph was missing. The morning after Ralph's escape, she came running ahead of Aunt Jill to the craft shop. She stopped short when she looked through the screen door and saw the litter of nails, seeds, and plastic strewn about the work table and on the floor. "Aunt Jill! Aunt Jill!" she shrieked, even though Aunt Jill was directly behind her. "Burglars have been here and somebody stole Garf's mouse!" Ralph crouched out of sight behind a fluff of dust in the angle where the brace joined the studding. He heard campers coming. "Garf! Garf!" called Lena. "Your mouse is gone! Somebody stole your mouse!" "Hey, look at the mess," said Pete. "The mouse cage is all bent," observed Garf. "A thief wouldn't have to bend the cage to open it." "First a watch, now a mouse," said another camper. "A thief in our midst," cried Lena, eager for excitement and mystery. "All right, boys and girls, let's pick up the nails and seeds and roll up the plastic." Aunt Jill's voice was calm. The crisis was not the first she had met at Happy Acres, nor would it be the last. Then Ralph heard Garf's voice saying, "Look at that hole in the screen door. It's big enough for a cat to squeeze through." "Good thinking, Garf," said Ralph to himself. He had picked up this phrase from the many school teachers who had stayed at the Mountain View Inn while on their summer vacations. "I'll bet Catso got my mouse," said Garf, adding sadly, "and he was such a good mouse, too." Ralph could not help being pleased by this compliment, and a little sad, too. Of course he was a good mouse. He had known that fact all along, but hearing himself spoken of in the past made him feel that the world would have been a sadder place without him. "Garf, you're a good detective," said Aunt Jill. "Catso must be the guilty one." "Aunt Jill, you don't think Catso ate the mouse, do you?" Lena was awed by the enormity of such a crime. "I hope not, for Garf's sake," said Aunt Jill. "What about my sake?" thought Ralph indignantly. "We'd better look around," said Aunt Jill. "Perhaps the mouse is hiding someplace." Instantly a mouse hunt was organized. Butterfly nets were seized, jars and boxes moved, craft materials lifted. "Here, Mousie, Mousie," called Lena. "Here, Mousie, Mousie." "As if I would come running," thought Ralph, huddled behind a dusty cobweb in the dark shadows. "I guess he's gone," said Garf at last. "The first and probably the last mouse I'll ever have." "Garf, I'm putting you in charge of repairing the hole," said Aunt Jill. "Get a piece of screen and some wire from Uncle Steve, and we'll make sure Catso won't come in here again. We wouldn't want him to annoy Chum." At that point the fur along Ralph's spine began to tingle. "There's Catso now," cried Lana. Ralph felt the slam of the screen door just jarred the building as Lana ran out. "Bad cat, Catso, bad cat!" he heard her shout. The scolding did Ralph's heart good. Later that morning, after his writing lesson, Garf returned with a piece of screen and some wire to repair the hole. His work was frequently interrupted as campers left the craft shop and drifted off to other activities. When Aunt Jill left, Ralph came down from his hiding place in a series of leaps. Through the screen door, he watched Garf sitting on the step weaving the wire patch to the screen with a piece of thin wire before he said, "Say, Garf, about my motorcycle." Startled, Garf looked up from his work. "You're alive?" His obvious pleasure was most gratifying to Ralph. "I thought Catso got you." "How come you believed Catso got me when you wouldn't believe Catso stole the watch?" demanded Ralph. "I can run and jump, you know, and a watch can't." "It just isn't logical for a cat to steal a watch," Garf insisted. "If I show you where the watch is, will you believe me?" asked Ralph. With a look of interest, Garf sat back on his heels. However, he said, "I don't want to have anything to do with that watch. I don't want to be seen near it, or people will start saying I took it again. Most everyone's forgotten about it, and I want to keep it that way." "You don't have to go near it," said Ralph. "Just watch me." Flattening himself, he squeezed under the screen door, jumped down the steps, and ran out into the bamboo leaves. Suddenly, all bamboo leaves looked alike. Which leaf was hiding the watch? Ralph did not know. He looked over one leaf, and then the next. He heard Garf mutter, "Huh," and returned to his work. Over by one of the lodges, Lena shouted, "Bad cat! Bad cat!" Ralph pushed some leaves aside and crawled under others. Where was that watch anyway? There was no telling how many leaves had fallen since Catso had dropped the watch. Ralph crawled deeper and deeper into the leaves and was finally rewarded by the touch of metal against his paw. Next, Ralph grasped the buckle on the leather strap and tugged. The watch was heavier than he had expected, but it slid across the smooth surface of the leaf. Ralph waded up through the leaves, pulling with all his strength, and at last emerged, dragging the watch behind him. "See," he said, "I told you I knew where it was." "Well, what do you know?" Garth sat down on the step to the craft shop. "You really did. How did the watch get there?" "I told you," said Ralph impatiently. Catso picked it up in his mouth, carried it out here, batted it around a while, and finally dropped it where it slid under a leaf. "You know, I believe you're telling the truth," said Garth with wonder in his voice. "Of course I'm telling the truth." Ralph was indignant. There is Ralph showing Garth the watch. "But what good does it do me?" asked Garth. "You know I can't return it, and if I said Catso stole it, people would laugh." This moment was the one Ralph had been waiting for. First, he pulled some bamboo leaves over the watch to hide it before he faced Garth. "All right, let's talk business," he said. "I return the watch and clear your name. You give me back my motorcycle." From the trampoline, Ralph heard Lana say as she bounced, "Bad dog, Sam. You're supposed to be a watchdog." She stopped bouncing and began to scold Sam. "You're a watchdog. Why didn't you watch what Catso was doing? Why did you let Catso get that poor little mouse?" Garth thought a while before he said, "Why do you want the motorcycle? The ground is pretty uneven around here." "Why do you want it?" countered Ralph. "You're too big to ride it. It is mouse-sized, not boy-sized." "I want it because I like to think about motorcycles," said Garth. "I push it back and forth and think about riding a motorcycle when I grow up." "I want it to ride," said Ralph. "Now, back to the Mountain View Inn. I want to go home." "The Mountain View Inn?" Garth was incredulous. "That's over a mile away. You'd never make it." Ralph recalled the long and thrilling downhill ride. He remembered how he had thought at the time that he would never be able to go back up the mountain road. "Maybe you're right," he admitted. "Of course you wouldn't," said Garth. He pulled the motorcycle out of his pocket and ran a finger over the front tire. "For one thing, your tires would never stand the trip. They're wearing smooth. There is still a lot of mileage left in them if you ride on floors, but they won't hold up on a highway." Oh. Ralph had not considered the possibility of his tires wearing out. "And another thing," said Garth, "you'd probably get laryngitis from making a motorcycle noise before you were halfway there." Ralph was utterly dejected. "I suppose you're right." "Bad Sam! Bad Sam!" scolded Lena from the trampoline. Ralph ducked under a leaf while some campers walked past. "What am I going to do?" he asked pitifully as he emerged. "I can't stay here with the cats. I'm a hotel mouse. I'm not used to living on weed seeds out in the cold. When winter comes, I'll probably die. If the cats don't get me first, I've got to try to make it back to the hotel." "You should have thought about things like that before you ran away," chided Garth. "I should, but I didn't," said Ralph coldly. "You don't have to sound like a grown-up." "Sorry," apologized Garth. The dinner bell rang, and campers began to run toward the dining hall. Catso avoided Lana with a haunted look on his furry face, darted from one hiding place to the next on his way to the kitchen door. Poor old Sam, so conscientious and anxious to please, padded dejectedly across the grass, with his tail drooping. He had failed in his duty. Ralph did not have much time. "Do we have an agreement or don't we?" he demanded of the boy. "I have a better idea," said Garth. "I'll take you back to the hotel myself when my family comes to get me. They'll be spending the night there before they come to pick me up the day after tomorrow. The camp doesn't serve us lunch on the day we leave, so I know we'll stop at the inn for lunch before we start for home. It's the only place around here. I could easily take you along in my pocket." This offer was more than Ralph had hoped for. "But the motorcycle," he persisted. "If I return the watch, will you give it back?" Ralph felt he would rather perish at Happy Acre Camp than return to the hotel without his motorcycle. "How will you return it?" Garth was curious. "You couldn't get it up on the shelf in the craft shop or up on a desk in the office." "I didn't say where I would return it," answered Ralph. "I said I would return it. I'll leave it somewhere where Karen is sure to find it." Garth thought this plan over. "But people might think I left it there." Ralph had an answer. "Not if I leave it someplace where the boys can't go." "You mean the girls' bathroom?" asked Garth, visibly impressed by Ralph's idea. "Maybe. said Ralph carelessly. Or Karen's lodge, or the girls' dressing room by the swimming pool. You better make up your mind or you'll be late for lunch. It's a deal, said Garth suddenly. You return the watch by tomorrow and I'll give you back your motorcycle. The next day I'll take you to the inn. But remember, no watch, no motorcycle. It's a deal, agreed Ralph. And you might throw in a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for my dinner. Would you care to shake on it? Asked Garth. Ralph extended his paw, which Garth took gently between his thumb and forefinger. They shook. I'll meet you by the bamboo tomorrow morning after breakfast, said Garth, and he ran off toward the dining hall. If you're not there, I'll come back later. I hope I'll be there, thought Ralph, who knew that a night of peril lay ahead of him. A peanut butter and jelly sandwich would help to give him strength and courage. Over in the dining hall, the campers began to sing. You can't get to heaven on roller skates, 'cause you'll roll right past those pearly gates. You can't get to heaven with a nickel in your jeans, 'cause the Lord don't allow no slot machine. All right, that is the end of chapter 8. Tune in tomorrow for chapter 9, and we will finish the book and see if Ralph makes it back to the Mountain View Inn.